Hello, everybody. It's Scott Bunce. And again, I am really having the pleasure of having one of my brilliant speakers that just gave a tremendous speech to our Vistage group, Huff Logue. Huff, I am so glad to have you, my friend.
And I'm so glad to be here.
Huff gave us a presentation on the executive hiring mistakes that people make. And Huff, one of the things that I took away is it appears that in hiring executives and going after and recruiting, we're asking the wrong questions of the people that we're hiring. And you gave several examples of different questions that people should be asking in going after senior executives. So, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you and talk about what do people typically say that are the wrong questions, and then maybe you can turn that into what should they be saying to hire really good people with key questions.
Yeah, so the one thing I love about AI is that you start with the question because I believe the answer is in the question. And so effectively asking the right kind of questions is really a critical skill. And AI has emphasized that because of you can ask it anything, right? And but its results are only as good as the questions you ask. So I think that there are a couple of things that I want to come back to. First of all, is things that need to be done before you start asking candidates questions. And it's a step that most miss or don't give enough time and attention to. And so we'll come back to that. But to answer your question, as you're talking with candidates and you're trying to qualify them to determine if they're fit or not, uh, sometimes the questions are uh, maybe favorite questions they like to ask. Tell me what you're passionate about, or tell me about your experience doing this or that. Or maybe sometimes it's even better with more specifics to tell me about a time when something happened, right? And those are okay. The problem is they're not comprehensive. It's like deciding to buy a car. And you want to ask a few questions like, do you have it in blue? Does it have four-wheel drive? Does it have a radio? And those are all relevant questions. But if you really want to, diagnose and decide if this car is right for you, you're going to have to ask a lot more questions, and you're going to have to be consistent about it because you're probably going to look at more than one car. So if you go to one dealer and you ask these three questions, you go to another dealer and ask these three questions, you're not being consistent. And that's one of the biggest problems people have when they're trying to hire is they just don't have a consistent process to do that. So we incorporate a methodology where we are making sure that we're asking the right questions, but asking consistently all the right questions. And the way we determine that is first looking at a step that sometimes is overlooked or not given enough attention to. So Einstein was quoted for saying that, if I have an hour to solve a problem, I'm going to spend the first 55 minutes trying to determine what the problem is, right? And then the last 5 minutes solving that problem. And so what happens is a lot of companies and executives with the hiring is say, I want someone with, vacation cabin rental experience, or I want someone with AI experience, or I want someone who has functioned in the role as a chief operating officer for a company of this size, et cetera. And that's all fine and that's good. But when they're doing that, they're talking about the solution, not the problem. And so to define the problem, we have a process that first starts with the executive team getting together, answering this question. What has to happen in this role in the first 90 days or the role fails? What has to
Hmm.
happen in the first 6 months in this role or function of our business or the role fails? And so we take them through this process where we're first identifying, where we're brainstorming together, we are having friendly debate together about this, we consolidate, and then we prioritize and walk away with the top six plus or minus results that have to be achieved in this role or the role fails. And what this process does is create an environment where people are unified, they're clear, and they're focused on the bullseye that we need to hit in hiring of this function of our business. When an organization is talking about experience or stuff that's on a resume, like industry experience or product experience or functional type of experience. They're talking about a candidate, not the role. And that's the big difference. So we first want to talk about the role. So this process, which is a patented process that allows the role to speak, if the role could tell us what does superior performance look like? So we get that. And then at that point, the added bonus here is the executive team then takes a psychometric assessment that allows them to create a score on 55 attributes of performance that fall into four buckets. What are the behaviors? What are the motivators? What are the competencies? And what is the cognitive structure or acumen of superior performance in this role? What does it look like? So once we have that information, then now it's time to say, well, what kind of experience might be probable to achieve that or most probable to support achieving those results? And so that's really, I'm giving you a long answer to the question, but this is kind of really sums it up on the front end. If we stop and focus on the role and then come back and then look at the individual, now we have a consistent and agreed upon bullseye that we're trying to hit of the top six, seven things. And so now when I interview, I can ask questions around those items.
You know, one of my favorite books is Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. And it sounds to me like in the interview process, what's different in your approach is what is the end in mind? And the end in mind in 30, 60, 90 days, 6 months is this result. And that end in mind approach is so different than what I think people typically use as far as interview questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a great way to put it. That's a great book, beginning with the end in mind. That's a similar analogy. And another thing that happens in hiring mistakes is that executives will have their favorite questions. They'll ask it. They'll get a good feeling or sense that they've answered my top couple of questions, and then they stop qualifying and stop interviewing, and they jump into sell mode and tell mode, and now they're trying to get the candidate to get interested in the opportunity, and so that's it's just the qualification. That's a lot of times why they hire me. And sometimes executives will say, "Hey, I'm hiring you to do all that qualification, so I can just ask my couple of questions and, make a gut level check on that." But that's a hiring mistake.
Yeah. No, I think so many times people are out there alone when they're hiring for a key role. I really loved how you highlighted the fact that you get your executive team together, you align on the outcomes of this position hire and get everybody aligned because not everybody's got the same concept of what's going to do well and what demonstrated success really is.
Yeah, that's right. And it's actually also an added benefit is it's an incredible recruiting tool because how many times maybe even you in your career or others have interviewed for an opportunity and they talk with one executive and they get one perspective. They talk with another executive as part of the interview process and they get a different flavor perspective. And so there's this inconsistency, which lowers trust and confidence in the opportunity. But when the team is unified and clear and focused, and they can talk about how they're going to be measured, how you're going to be measured in the role, the level of confidence goes up significantly.
If somebody's going to bring somebody of your caliber into a hiring process, have you been brought in too late in the game and mistakes have been made? Do you have any examples of that along the way?
Oh, wow. I run into that scenario a lot. But it kind of depends on which stage in the process where the mistake is made. Usually it's, after someone has not worked out in the opportunity. And yeah, examples. Um, gosh, there's so many that come to mind. I think I've just had a roadblock. It's all stuck in a bottleneck there. But I would say, generally speaking, we just have to back up and understand where the mistakes are. And the number one reason that senior executives come to me when an opportunity did not work out is not necessarily because they couldn't do the job or didn't do the job, but it was because of misalignment with kind of the values, the beliefs, the approaches that they take in working in the organization. And so, if you're an employee of the organization and the power base doesn't like you, you're going to be let go. Or if you're not aligned, you're an executive and you don't agree with what they're doing, you'll probably leave and go find something else. So in either case, but that's the number one reason. And part of the alignment that we're doing is not just the job requires that you increase revenue by X or EBITDA by Y or whatever the case may be. It's also being able to work together and to see eye to eye and work through the issues. How do we deal with our top customer that produces the most amount of revenue, the least amount of profit, and uses the most amount of our services and support? How are we going to approach that?
Yeah. Here's one thing that you did, which I thought was brilliant in the meeting, was you actually asked in the room how many people are hiring for key positions right now. And sure enough, maybe a third of the room had something in their mind where they were hiring a key position. Then you broke us off into teams, and we had to actually create that. What does it look like in 90 days? What does it look like in 6 months? That was just a brilliant exercise.
Yeah, I love doing exercises because, I'm a very kinesthetic person. So if I can, you know, put my hands on it and do it and experience it, I'll remember it.
Absolutely. Now, tell us a little bit more about the psychometrics that you use, and what are you looking for in that process that really has top tier talent standing out? What do they have in common? What's the roadmap there?
Well, I'll give a really good tip here on how to determine if you're talking with an A player, an A plus player when you're interviewing. So, in 35 years of doing this, there's one consistent thing, and I'll get to the psychometric piece of this, but there's one consistent behavior trait that I see among the A plus players. So, there's a difference between individuals that are in the top 10% versus the bottom 90%. I won't say bottom, but the other 90%. But there's also a distinct difference between the top 1% and the top 10% or other 9% of that top 10%. And that one behavior is, I noticed it in the very beginning when I first got into recruiting, and it's remained constant. And that is individuals that are A plus players in your organization and kind of transcend even psychometrics, okay, is that they're extremely good qualifiers. They do it up front and they do it very diplomatically. So what that means is when you're sitting down with them, they're going to be pretty quick to turn the conversation or interview into almost like they're interviewing you if you're a hiring executive, and they're asking you some really key questions. So I've always said this before, it's the questions you ask that say much more about you than the answers you give. And so if you listen to the questions that a candidate is asking, and if they're doing it up front and they're doing it very diplomatically, it's not like it doesn't feel like an interrogation, but they're very consultative, they're persuasive. They have a good read on people and being able to understand the style of the individual and work with that. But the bottom line is the A plus players, they're going to find out the information they need to decide if they're even interested in you, and they're going to do it pretty quickly because they value their time. They're not going to sit there for an hour and just have a good old meeting, right? And so, anyway,
It strikes me that's when, now going from the candidate to the employer, this is where the employer can make a great difference. Meaning if they have integrity, they won't gloss over things and paint that it's all sunshine and rainbows and unicorns. It feels like this is an opportunity to speak on their mind of what some of the challenges are in the organization, just to see how they react to that. Because if you're just in selling mode as opposed to painting a realistic picture, who knows? Maybe you'll get them across the finish line. But when you get them across the finish line and they discovered it isn't what you painted as a true picture of the organization, I could see things going south pretty fast.
absolutely. A good analogy here is let's say you're going to buy a house And you get in the car, you put the family and the dog in the car, and you go house shopping, right? And you pull up to the curb and you look at it and you look at everyone in the car and say, looks like a pretty house or looks like a great house. We should buy it. Well, that's not what you do, but that's curb appeal. So you first have to have curb appeal before you even decide. If the house is just a, ugly duckling, I don't care how good it's inside or the pricing, it's there's reasons you don't buy it. Curb appeal is important, okay? But then instead, what you do is you walk inside the house and you look at the floor plan and the layout and you say, this meets our family's needs. And that's another dimension. So you've got the curb appeal, now you've got the inside, the layout, the organization. That's a second dimension of looking at the house. And then you drive around the community and see if it has the right amenities and the right services and restaurants and other things like that, and realize that that's another dimension. You're getting more data and more information. And then you hire an inspector who comes in and looks between the walls and underneath the foundation, so to speak, and radon testing and all these other things. So you get more information and data. Most companies and most executives hire with curb appeal only. They take a look at it and go, looks great, smells good, tastes good, let's buy it, right? And instead, so what we're doing in this process and using the psychometrics is we're providing information and data that you can't see or discern in the interview. And you only find out after 9 months or 6 months later, and you go, oh my gosh, what happened here? How did we miss that? That's a very common mistake. And so this is how we're able to predict hiring superior performers. Now, it's not a panacea. It's not 100%, but it's a very strong process. And the Department of Labor says that you should only look at people, you should only use these tools for only 30% of the weight in the decision-making process. Some put more weight on emphasis, too much. Others blow it off. There's a balance like anything in life. The Department of Labor says you should also look at people in a trimodal fashion. So we're looking at it in 4 dimensions versus that. And so the things that we're looking at are really the behavior and communication style. We're looking at what makes them tick or actually what turns them off. We're looking at the competencies or capacities or developed skills that they have. And we're looking at their cognitive structure and how they think, value, and judge, how they see the world. If I don't understand and can't see how physics works, I'm not going to be able to teach you about it. So you have to first see it to even do it. So we can measure people's clarity in being able to see the things, but we're not doing that in a vacuum. Again, going back to the beginning of this conversation, we're first determining what are the scores on those 55 attributes that are what does superior performance look like in the job? What are the behaviors? What are the motivators? What are the competencies? And what is the acumen of superior performance? So we're measuring that scientifically, right? And then when we find the candidate, we give them the concentric psychometric assessment. We compare their assessment with the company job benchmark assessment. We create a gap analysis so I can tell you how well someone fits or doesn't fit. And over 33 million people have taken this instrument. So it's a pretty accurate tool. It comes out to be 91.5% accurate in its ability to measure hiring a superior performer.
0.5. That's
91.5.
very,
Eight,
very
eight,
specific.
that's the average. There have been 8 independent surveys on it, and it comes out to that level of accuracy. Now, there's other factors that contribute to it, but that's a big one. You can hire the best person in the world from your competition that's kicking your butt. But if you don't lead or manage them properly, it doesn't matter. They're going to leave or you're going to get rid of them.
Very good. Well, these were all great tips, Huff. And I'm going to leave with one last observation. Outside of having Huff come to my Vistage group, I actually, in my last hired him into the company to come and do psychometrics with the team and how they worked with each other. And we used that multiple times. So here's an opportunity just to give a quick shout out to that. Huff, if you've got any thoughts around that.
Well, that was a fun exercise because there was a lot of interesting dynamics. We had, I believe, 10 people from your leadership team in the organization. We spent 2 4-hour days together going through a lot of fun exercises, looking at each other's personal assessments. And then the objective there was to help create more understanding and empathy and skills and abilities to deal with different styles. So what happens in organizations, and I this is used in when there's conflict a lot of times, or when things are just not well oiled, or you seem to be bumping head with others individuals in the organization. And so the objective is being able to look in the mirror and more clearly see what my preferences are in terms of the way that I communicate, what turns me on, what turns me off, what my real strengths are, what I need to develop on, just getting into reality. It's like anything in life, whether it's AA or pick one, it all starts with self-awareness, right? And so we first get a really good clarity on ourselves. Number two, because now we're using similar vernacular and the ability to make sure we're on the same page, that we're communicating the same thing, I can now look at others in the organization, in your organization, and I can more clearly see them. So rather than judging them for being different, I now appreciate the value they bring to the table, and I have more patience, understanding, and empathy to work with them. And the biggest contrast, so part C of that is being able to, how do I adapt my style and behavior and working with an individual. And so you'll see this is a common sales organization. So the sales rep comes into an organization, says, we've got our biggest customer. They want these feature changes or service changes, and we need it done immediately. And they go to product development or to customer success and say, you need to change this now, or we're going to lose this customer. They're the biggest one. And you're dealing with a different style of individual who, first of all, doesn't make decisions because someone tells them to. They have to get a lot of data, a lot of information. They like to let it marinate. They like to, and so there's immediately this bump or conflict that happens. Or you've got people on the other end, they come into the organization, they want to provide too much detail and too much information. And, those people are ready to make decisions now. So that's a common big contrast. And so, but if you take those individuals and let's say now the sales rep learns, well, let me see, in customer success or product development or engineering, I understand more how they like to operate, what works for them, what turns them off. And so instead, as a sales rep, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to say, hey, let's say you're Scott, the engineering organization. Hey, Scott, I need your help. I I've got a customer, it's one of our largest customers, and they're telling us that they're going to probably look at our competition if we can't incorporate this additional functionality or service into our offering. And I'm not sure what to do. I need some help. And I thought you might have some understanding and information and data about what we could do or solutions. What do you think? Now you've just engaged and energized that other style who they're going to go to
Yes.
bat for you. And so that's a simplistic one, but there are many different binary types of examples if you can learn to do that. In your organization, a quick story is you had someone who was a senior executive who had one person that had left from working and another one, I believe, that was about to resign. And after this interaction, I think you ended up meeting with this individual, and it was a very personal moment where they humbly admitted, "Wow, I just didn't realize I was impacting people this way." And if I
Mm.
recall, I think you were able to salvage the one that was about to resign, and you were close to getting the other one to come back. It was something anyway. But I think that was a good example of how. And it deals with, and I'll kind of maybe, I know we're running on time here, is really what we're talking about is trust and respect. And, um, in order to lead, people must follow. But in order to follow, people must commit. But in order to commit, there needs to be some mutual trust and mutual respect in the relationship. To the level that I trust and respect you is to the level that I will commit to you as a leader. And if I can't have that trust and respect, I'm not really not going to commit. I might, what they call quiet quitting, where you're still there, but you're really not doing your job because you're just getting
Mhm.
by, right? And so what we want is engagement and trust and respect. And when you can connect with someone and understand their language, like the book many years ago, The Language of Love, great book, but the same in the business world. It's not what was it, trust and something else, but it's trust and respect in the business world.
These are sage words. I was very lucky to have you as a speaker in my group. I was lucky to bring you into my former business. And frankly, I think anybody would be lucky to explore more about what you have to offer, either with executive hiring or working with teams and the teams dynamics. How do people get a hold of you?
So I'm not the grayest haired guy on LinkedIn, but my profile is easy to find. So it's Huff, spelled Huff, Logue, Logue. I think there's only one of me out there, and with that unique name. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can also connect with me via email. My email address is hlogue@execulinks.com, spelled Hlogue at execulinks.com, like it sounds. And my phone number is 770-855-8550.
Very good. Huff, this was brilliant. Thank you again for all your time, my friend.
Oh, thank you too. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Scott.